Hi friends! I am making Glinda's collar today, and in order to make her collar, I'm gonna be taking a look at my Sakizou, amethyst costume to help me figure out how I should make Glinda's collar. First, if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is my Sakizou amethyst costume that won TwitchCon in 2018. I wasn't making YouTube videos at the time, so I don't have any videos on how I made it, but I did a live stream over 200 hours of the construction of this costume, so that's gotta be worth something, right? If you are interested in me doing a video breakdown of how I made this costume, please let me know in the comments below. Now, let's talk about the collar. To make the collar, I started by measuring my shoulder neck measurement to create the curve. Then I knew I needed the collar to be proportional to the wig. So I measured the wig bouffant and took that measurement and used it for the height of the collar. This gave me a basic pattern, and then using math, I broke it up into sections, which then guided the little spiky details. Once I got what I liked, I cut it out of buckram and 2 pieces of cotton. I also used wire as the base, which allows me to manipulate it just by folding it like so. I hand stitched the wire to the buckram and then machine stitched the bottom and side edges of the cotton, and using a whip stitch, I closed up the seams tightly at the top to ensure that those points were perfect. I also made a base piece out of buckram that followed the same curve as the bottom of the collar, but that I could sew hooks into to make the collar hook into the bodice, which is how it stayed attached to my body when I moved. Just like the rest of this costume, I added tons of trim, beads, and rhinestones. I also hand cast resin gems for the front, hand painted gold trim for the back, and even made this little black Elizabethan style ruff for the base of the collar. None of these details are super helpful for my Glinda collar, but I think I figured out a good way to start this collar, so let's get into it. The biggest change between the Sakizou collar and my Glinda collar are going to be the shape of the collar, the opacity, and the fact that the collar can't hook into the back, so the support of the collar relies on the wire frame structure and the placement of the front attachments. Something that I wish I did with Sakizou was add wire inside the collar as well as on the outer structure. This should help with the support of the collar. So starting just like I did previously, let's figure out the base curve and then add how high I want the collar to go and how wide. I will start by making a paper pattern and trying it on to see how it shapes my face. Now that I have my desired shape, I'm going to use wire to create the outline of the collar. This is gardening wire. I think it was really cheap compared to jewelry wire and came with way more for the price, but millinery wire and jewelry wire are typically what is used for this kind of thing. I am going to place weights to keep my pattern flat. Then I will start tracing the pattern with the wire, making sure to overlay the wire at the base of the curve to keep the structure together. I decided to grab some painter's tape to hold the wire in place, and finally, when the outline was done, I used a pair of metal cutters to cut the wire. Moving on to the inside of the shape, I created these 2-leaf clover looking designs so that there would be a few points of connection at the top and a bit more stability in the center of the collar. This process took a bit of adjusting, and then I repeated it to create 3 of them total. And this is where I put the blood, the blood, sweat, and tears aspect of this costume. I honestly didn't even feel this happen. I'm glad it happened with the paper and not when I was working with the fabric. So here we are. I'm finding that this isn't very strong. I don't know if that's a me thing or the wire thing. So I found this, and I think I'm gonna try this on the outside and then just keep our little heart-shaped doodads on the inside, and maybe that will solve my problem. All right, so it stands up really well now. I do have tape holding it up on my dress form, and a trick that I did was I used just clear plastic, regular Scotch tape at these junctions here. Let me show you. So here at this corner, and then all of these, and then again, at this corner, and it's just kind of helping it hold a little bit better. How it's going to attach is there's going to be velvet that goes around the whole base of it that will come in this way and attach here, but we're not quite there yet. Let's get the fabric bit of this done. So let's go back to the table. For the fabric, I added a 1/2 inch to the outside of my fabric to ensure that it would fit around my structure. I can always take things in later. Then once the outside was marked, I actually used my rotary cutter to cut through both layers of organza so I could ensure it would all be lined up perfectly in the long run. I stitched 5/8 of an inch around the top and side edges of this piece, and then I left the bottom open so that I could put the wire into it. I clipped the sides and top curve with pinking shears. This will help with fraying, but it will also help it look nicer in the long run. I flipped it right side out and then I pressed it using a very low heat because this is the organza that melts pretty easily. I put the wire structure in obviously from the bottom, and once I got it in, I actually put a pin in the bottom center. Then I was able to actually clip the curve of this bottom center piece. That way I could fold it inside around the bottom hoop, and then I also put pins at the top of the wire this way that it would lay flat at the top, and then I could put pins in at the bottom. Once everything was pinned in place, it is ready to be sewn. I stitched this down, making sure that I went through all of the layers of organza and that it was pretty close to the wire. I did more of a whip stitch type thing like I did on my Sakizou collar, and it seemed to work out for the best. Then I remembered this entire edge is getting covered with bias tape. I pinned the first fold of the bias tape to the outer edge of the collar, and then I just used a running stitch to stitch this down. I did a very small running stitch, but I still just hand stitched it down using a running stitch. I felt like that would be the best, and it really did help secure it. Then I folded this bias tape over this edge and I whip stitched it in place on the basically the inside of the collar, the side that will be laying up against my neck. I had some trouble acquiring reference photos of the collar, like really good up close images of the collar, so I couldn't really tell what was on the straps. I decided to go with sequins with a seed bead in the center of it. I went with the darkest blue that I've been using, and then this like cauliflower blue and a crystally looking bead, and I think it looks really good, so that's what I did. All right, so here we are. I think the shape is great. I think these are really great. Obviously, I have to wear the bodice before and like figure out placement before we can put snaps on it and figure out exactly like how long this will be. I have two concerns. The color is a little green. It's not quite as light as Glinda's. It's just like a little blue-green, so I don't know how I feel about that yet. But also, right here, the fabric is really baggy, and I'm pretty sure it's obviously because it's too big, like on the wire structure, which is kind of frustrating. I knew I should have made it like a tiny bit smaller, but I didn't go with my gut, and so here we are. I'm not liking it. Go with your gut, friends. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about that. I thought about just stitching the sequins on and then seeing how it looks and seeing how I feel about it. I know that's a solid 4 or 5 hours of work to continue to do to decide if I'm going to redo it. On the bright side, the wire is like going to stay. I would just take all the fabric off and redo that. But anyway, yeah, that's where we're at. I'll check in in a little bit. So classic Casey, I forgot to get footage of me hand sewing the sequins on. Womp womp. Oh well, moving on to the snaps, I basically brought out my bodice, and I know for a fact, because I have images of the inside of her bodice, that they had snaps right here in the sleeve, like right before you would get to the sleeve. So I'm sewing these exactly where I know they are on the inside, and then we can do a little bit of a fitting and figure out where I need to place the snaps on the straps, and I think it's time for a reveal. All right, so the collar is done. I actually am starting to like the color more and more. Like the more that I see it with the gown, the less green it looks and the more like blue with a tiny bit of green undertone it looks. With that being said, I really, really wish that I had done all of these sequins in tambour embroidery, like on bobbinette with tambour, and then sewn all the fabric pieces up with the bobbinette like as the top, because I feel like the layer of bobbinette will really help it blend in with all of this, which is why this is so cool toned. It's because there's bobbinette on it. But I also don't really love the back of this, how you can see all these microscopic stitches. To me, that's not clean. So I think for competition, I will likely remake this so that it will be clean, and I will remake it using both tambour embroidery and bobbinette so that it will have a cooler tone and match all of the rest a little bit better. But I think this is a really good spot to be in for actually wearing her and getting her to a stage where I can debut her at a convention. That is kind of the process that's going through my mind right now, is get to the point where I can actually finish the costume and wear it, and then think about competition and how I want to wear this costume at a later date. So also, like, another thing to note is, for some reason, all of a sudden, this sleeve right here is like slightly too big. I never noticed it in any of my other fittings. I didn't notice it when I fixed it. And now today I was trying to take photos in it and I felt like it kept falling off. So I need to make an adjustment on this sleeve here because it is like falling off and I don't really like that. Also, even though like it's tight, like this is like pretty well connected to this when I wear it, there's still like a little looseness, and hers doesn't look loose. I haven't decided how I feel yet, because something that I have to consider is that I will have a wig and there will be like hair all throughout here. So having it not loose to where it's like slipping back, because it's not slipping back, it's just there's gaping in the straps right here when I wear it. So something I need to think about is that, like, is that gaping bad? Is it just enough gaping so that when I have a wig, I can move and everything? Because also movement is so important, and it could just be the photos. It could also look, because like I couldn't see it gaping, but I could feel it gaping. So maybe it looks different than what I'm perceiving. I'm not sure, but I might have to move the snaps a millimeter at some point. We'll figure that out though, kind of once we get near the end and we're doing our finishings. Otherwise, I really love it. I think it turned out great. I like the way it feels. I like the way I feel in it. Thank you all so much for watching this video. The next video in the Glinda series is going to be on styling her wig. So if you are interested in this project, please subscribe to my channel. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Also, let me know what you thought of this video or this costume down below. Do you want me to do just a deep dive into Sakizou? I don't know what that video looks like, but I would love to make something like that. And yeah, until next time, may all your dreams come true.